Now on Fox 13 News at 9, a historic move made by President Biden. The sentences of roughly 1,500 Americans commuted. 39 people have been pardoned, and one of those is a woman from Utah. You'll meet her.
And we're tracking a storm that will bring snow here across northern Utah. Will it bring a winter wonderland? I'll let you know.
A community vigil helping remember the lives lost to gun violence here in Utah.
Live from Utah's news leader, Fox 13 News at 9 starts right now.
And we are glad you're with us. I'm Max Roth in for Bob Evans this week. Well, just into the Fox 13 newsroom, a Salt Lake City police officer was arrested in American Fork on sexual abuse charges. 26-year-old Xander Nunley is accused of sexually assaulting a woman he met on the dating app Hinge. Court documents say she went to his home on Sunday to watch a religious Christmas devotional. The department confirms Nunley has been placed on paid administrative leave. And now to our big story of the evening. President Biden making history for the most commutations in one day, roughly 1,500 people. The president also issued several pardons to people considered to have demonstrated records of meaningfully giving back to the community and the country. Among them, a decorated military veteran, a nurse who's said to have helped during natural disasters and the COVID-19 pandemic, and an addiction counselor recognized for his dedication to mentoring young men. The president saying in a statement, America was built on the promise of possibility and second chances, writing, quote, "As president, I have the great privilege of extending mercy to people who have demonstrated remorse and rehabilitation, restoring opportunity for Americans to participate in daily life and contribute to their communities, and taking steps to remove sentencing disparities for nonviolent offenders, especially those convicted of drug offenses." Now, one of those 39 people pardoned by President Biden is a woman from Utah who has turned her life around and wants others to know that change is possible. Fox 13 News reporter Maithili Gubi shares her story.
Meet Stephanie Doyle.
So I am a therapist with Wasatch Behavioral Health with the jail transition program.
She also fosters animals, volunteers, plays roller derby, is a wife, mom, and grandmother.
If you would have asked me 20 years ago if I would be here today, I never would have imagined that.
Stephanie has come a long way.
What addiction looks like and what recovery looks like. So, I mean, it's a bad picture to look at, but it always reminds me of where I've been.
Her journey has some chapters that she tells me she isn't very proud of.
So in 2000, I started using meth. I was introduced to meth and I instantly became addicted. It was the one thing that I felt like just completed me. And within a year, I had lost custody of my 4 children to DCFS. I had racked up a bunch of charges.
She served time at the Utah State Prison and then at federal prison in Arizona.
So I started to take accountability for my actions and just realized that I didn't want to live this lifestyle.
Stephanie started helping people who are struggling with substance abuse and even went back to school to study social work.
And I never thought I would graduate college, let alone get a master's degree.
On Wednesday, Stephanie received a special phone call. She was pardoned by President Joe Biden's administration.
And I was like, no way, I cannot believe this is happening. So I was just overwhelmed and I just kind of spun around in my office for like 20 minutes.
Making a huge difference in her life.
I won't have to explain myself all the time. Even though I don't have a problem sharing it, it's part of my story, it's part of who I am. It's still nice to not have to do that.
And hoping her story inspires others to know that change is possible.
If I can change my life, anybody can.
In Santa Quin, I am Maithili Gubi, Fox 13 News, Utah.
That's good to see. Well, the power to grant clemency in the form of pardons or commutations is often described as the most kingly power granted to an American president. Most presidential decisions can be reversed by Congress or a court, but pardons and commutations are final. Think of the power represented as an eraser. The difference: a pardon erases guilt in the eyes of the law. It restores all of a person's rights that may have been lost. For example, some states take away a felon's right to vote or to hold public office. A commutation does not erase guilt. It erases some or all of the punishment. This can take many forms. A person serving time may be freed, or his or her time may be decreased. A person on death row could have the death penalty commuted in place of life in prison. All of this only applies to crimes under the jurisdiction of federal courts, and federal courts hear less than 0.5% of all criminal cases in the U.S. Coming up in our next half hour, our big story coverage continues with a Scripps News investigation into potential pardons for January 6th insurrectionists. Well, let's switch gears to weather now, and we are taking a live look at I-80 at Parley's Summit, looking around to see if we see some snowflakes. Not right now seeing those, but it could be a different story come the morning commute. So let's head over to Breck Bolton. And Breck, we've been talking about the potential for some snow. What would you say, showers, flurries?
Yeah, light snow in the forecast here with this first storm pushing through. It is a weak one, but the one behind as we move into the weekend, more impressive. But this one will make its mark just in time for the morning commute, where right now, as we look across the valley floor from our Natural History Museum camera, we're seeing some clouds, a little bit of light precipitation across the mountains. We'll get things going a little bit later on. It's really past midnight that we see a better threat of those light snow showers, where we're seeing the storm system making its move. We're coming in from the southwest, then we'll wrap around some moisture and bring in some cooler air heading into tomorrow morning. Right now, as we look at radar, not too active, but there are a few isolated areas where we're starting to prime the pump, developing some isolated, very light activity, kind of a mixture of rain and snow as you move north of Beaver, heading up towards Juab County. Right now, we're seeing a focus across Tooele and Box Elder County. It's blue, that's snow. This is what will be pushing its way towards the Wasatch Front. And the biggest concern for the benches up through the canyons, where it's light snow, but as it does stick in some areas, we could maybe see some slushy conditions. But as I mentioned, the timing of it all, where we're holding on to cloudy conditions once we get past midnight, especially as we go to the 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock hour, we start to see that light snow falling. How long does it last? As far as the accumulation, how much are we expecting? Again, gearing up for the weekend, how does the forecast look on that front? We'll answer that coming up in just a bit.
Breck, thank you. Today, President-elect Donald Trump was named Time Magazine's Person of the Year for the second time. He also held it in 2016 when he was first elected president. Well, since the list began in 1927, almost a century ago, almost every U.S. president has been named Time's Person of the Year. The title is about influence, for better or for worse, from pop icon Taylor Swift to brutal dictators like Joseph Stalin. The Salt Lake Tribune will soon name the 2024 Utahan of the Year. They have a whole list of people you can vote for, from Utah Jazz and hockey club owner Ryan Smith to outgoing Utah Attorney General Sean Reyes to members of the cast of the show Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. You can also vote for a write-in candidate. The deadline to cast your vote is 5 in the evening tomorrow. In other news here in Utah, the Gun Violence Prevention Center of Utah says nearly 500 Utahns lost their lives to gun violence in 2023. They say it is a 10-year high in the Beehive State. Fox 13 News reporter Chris Arnold was at a vigil tonight where family and loved ones remembered the lives lost to gun violence.
I feel like it's something you don't really ever get over.
In January of 2022, Sinia Mila lost her cousin, 15-year-old Paul Tahi, to gun violence after he was killed during a shooting near Hunter High School. She remembers that day vividly.
On my way to Hunter High, we found out that there was kids in the hospital because of a shooting. And then it wasn't until we got there that we found out that it was Paul.
I've lost a lot of people over the years to gun violence.
For Venom, a local recording artist, one loss that sticks with him is the death of his good friend Levi Collins. The 34-year-old was shot and killed back in 2014.
They still haven't found my brother Levi's body to this day, I believe.
Thursday night inside of Community of Grace Presbyterian Church in Sandy, more than 24 people showed up for a vigil for victims of gun violence.
Every year we invite people who've lost people to gun violence to come. You know, sometimes the holidays are a really difficult time for people who've lost somebody.
Through music and words of gathering in peace, those who turned out taking fellowship with one another.
We have some pictures of gun violence victims, Utah gun violence victims, on a tree, and we invite people to come up and take a card with somebody's name and picture on it and to light a candle for them.
Nancy Halden, the communications director for the Gun Violence Prevention Center of Utah, spoke about the hope for this kind of vigil.
We're stronger together, and so you know, this is a time for us to stand with people who've lost people.
Progress in any form, even small things like this.
Well, when it comes to gun violence, Halden says one thing that they've really been advocating for is safe storage when it comes to guns. It's an issue she says will be brought up in the legislative session next year. Here in Sandy, Chris Arnold, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Parents in one Utah school district learned what an employee is accused of doing. Listen in on a conversation I had with a man who helps screen people who hold positions of trust. And as you get ready to celebrate the holidays, the man who commands Utah's Highway Patrol asks you to think about your ride home. Plus, Breck will introduce you to one local girl who's looking to spread joy this holiday season through stockings. It's a positively Utah story you don't want to miss. In local news, a bus driver with the Canyon School District is on paid administrative leave after he was arrested on child porn charges. Unified Police tell us law enforcement received a tip and worked with the FBI to trace an IP address, which led them to a home address where they arrested 69-year-old Val Whitehead. The Canyon School District says they took action as soon as they learned of that arrest.
Will not be engaged in his employment as a bus driver in the Canyon School District until further notice.
The district also told us that Whitehead drove 3 routes: Mount Jordan Middle School, Glacier Hills, and Quail Hollow, elementary schools. Right now, police do not believe any students were involved. The district is providing counseling to any students after hearing the news. Well, the Canyon School District learned about the arrest and took action, as you heard. So how does an agency entrusted with children track such things? The school district likely learned what happened due to a program Utah's Bureau of Criminal Identification pioneered. It's called Rap Back. We talked with the BCI about that and about the limits of a background check. When people misunderstand what a background check is, what are their conceptions that maybe it's not?
Really, what the Bureau of Criminal Identification does is we are the repository for criminal history information records, sometimes called rap sheets. That rap sheet data is comprised of arrest segment and the resulting disposition. We wouldn't send any individuals out to interview people. We wouldn't have investigators go and investigate. That's the job of law enforcement.
But an employee with a background check, that's an ongoing thing. If someone's arrested today for something that would be of concern, a flag would go up.
That's correct. So as long as the agency is subscribed to the RapBack system, RapBack is a system in which instead of a moment in time background check, we're actually doing a daily background check looking for new criminal history information. A lot of the states have local RapBack systems in place, but Utah BCI was the first to establish a nationwide RapBack system. Our entire school system, whether it's certified teachers, food distribution individuals or bus drivers, they all are required to submit those fingerprints and get entered into that RapBack system.
Right. Well, background checks catch arrests, which means it's still necessary to be alert because not everyone with bad intent has a criminal record. According to a recent study out of UCLA, Americans drink double their typical amount of alcohol during the holiday season. And right now, the Utah Department of Public Safety wants to make sure people stay safe as they hit the roads in the coming weeks. According to the latest report, there have been nearly 200 more DUI arrests in 2024 than there were last year. Of those arrests, 72% were men, and most had a blood alcohol concentration double the Utah legal limit of 0.05. A new QR code is part of the awareness message.
This is a great way to participate and to make a plan to have a safe, sober ride home by having that QR code and using that QR code for WCF to provide a $10 Uber credit for any patron that needs it.
And Workers' Compensation Fund, WCF Insurance, is sponsoring a $10 Uber ride credit voucher program across 45 bars and restaurants in the Salt Lake Valley this holiday season. All right, and it's nice to see some weather mixing things up because we don't want haze to take over again, and we want to be able to see across the valleys.
Absolutely. Now we saw a little return of the haze inversion, stronger today, especially across Davis and Salt Lake counties, where that haze in place because we quickly build in high pressure, but we knew it would be short-lived because we have a series of storms, which will help keep things mixed out as we head into the weekend. But we did find temperatures once again above average. We got up to 46 degrees. As we could say, maybe it's the warm before this weak storm, and I emphasize the word weak. This storm will make a little bit of a mark here across northern and central Utah as we look to see some snow showers here tonight through your morning commute. Right now we're at 35 degrees in Salt Lake City as well as mid-30s in Ogden. A little bit warmer with winds out of the south in Provo, areas where the inversion a little bit stronger, trapping in that cold air. Now we've seen a transition where earlier on most counties were in the green except for Salt Lake, Davis, and Tooele counties. Now everyone in the yellow. Yeah, we're seeing that haze. We're not breathing as easy, but that will change where we go back to green due to the storm system moving in. So improvements expected as we're going to be looking at conditions to remain good, especially as we have another second storm that'll be making its move Saturday night through Sunday. This storm, or that second storm, a little bit more impressive in that it will generate more snow both for the mountains and for some valley locations. But for tonight's storm, as we take a look at the watches and warnings in place, there's no winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings here as we see winter storm watches in effect for southeast Idaho, but that's an indication of how much snow we're expecting, which is not much at all, where again most of the snow accumulation will be across the mountains. But as you can see the range there, northern mountains 1 to 3 inches, squeezing out a little bit more for the Cottonwood Canyons. As the storm does move further southward, less of an impact, but here across northern Utah, Cache Valley, you might see a trace to an inch. Salt Lake Valley kind of leaning more towards the trace. Now, doesn't mean that we don't have concerns for the roadways there, especially as you make your move along the benches through the canyons. It's cold enough that we could see some slushy conditions where this storm at least has enough moisture that will generate that snow that will fall for kind of an extended period of time throughout the morning hours. We're not seeing much activity right now. A few light snow showers turning towards Juab, Tooele, up through Box Elder County. That's what will make its move. As it wraps around, it will generate under northwesterly flow a little bit more of a lift as it heads through the benches and the mountains as well. There's the storm system. We're seeing that southerly flow. Now this storm coming in from the west won't have anything of significance as far as colder air is concerned, so we're not going to see much of a change in temperatures. But again, a little bit more of an impressive storm here heading in for Sunday. This will be a mixture of rain and snow for the valleys and more snow for the mountains, which that's what will potentially generate upwards maybe 5 to 10 inches for the mountains, which we need to get back on building the snow and snowpack here for the mountains, for the ski resorts, but of course for our water supply as well. All right, let's take a look at the computer models. We move here through tonight, overnight, we get things going. We wake up tomorrow morning, especially for the central northern end of the Wasatch Front. We see that light snow showers. Heading into the afternoon, we're clearing out. We get mostly clear skies as we head into tomorrow night, and then late Saturday into Sunday, we start to generate another storm. But again, you're seeing a lot more green coming in from the west, and that's why we're seeing a mixture of some rain and snow, but initially starting off with rain. But this storm will start off with snow because of the timing of the storm in the the overnight all hours with some colder temperatures. But again, once we head into the afternoon, we start to see some sunshine. Highs tomorrow, again, not seeing a big drop. 40s for most locations, even mid 40s, so temperatures still above average. St. George, you're missing out on the showers. You're seeing 50s and remaining in the 50s and keeping it nice, even upper 50s heading towards the middle of next week. Northern Utah, a little bit more active. Snow showers tomorrow, then afternoon rain, then a mixture of rain and snow on Sunday, clearing out Monday. Weak storm on Tuesday. All in all, this will help keep the air mixed out. We'll keep temperatures all days above average. We're back after the break.
Next year, fallen Santaquin Police Sergeant Bill Hooser's name will be placed on the National Law Enforcement Officer Memorial Wall in Washington, D.C. during National Police Week. So the Santaquin Police Department is hoping to raise enough money to send Sergeant Hooser's family and co-workers to Washington, D.C. for the event. They're raising money by selling memorabilia through the Santaquin Police Department and Santaquin City Hall. Utah State University has dropped out of a lawsuit over an alleged transgender athlete. You'll recall Utah's governor, House Speaker, and Senate President pushed them to join a lawsuit against the Mountain West Conference over San Jose State's volleyball program and an athlete perceived to be transgender. USU and Southern Utah University forfeited games against San Jose rather than play an athlete that they thought was transgender. USU wanted an injunction related to a volleyball tournament. That tournament happened anyway, so USU says their case is now moot and they are dropping out of that lawsuit. A big Southern Utah grocery chain is donating money to help hungry students at Utah Tech University. Lynn's Stores announced it's donating $20,000 in groceries to the Blazer Food Pantry. That should cover the need for non-perishable food for the rest of the academic year. The pantry is designed to help students who face food insecurity where they may not have enough money after bills to buy those groceries. Universities across the state have similar pantries to meet students' needs.
President-elect Donald Trump has hinted for months that he would pardon those who have been convicted of crimes for January 6th. Scripps News went to the D.C. jail to ask those behind bars how they feel about the potential of a presidential pardon.
We continue to dig into the big story of presidential pardons, but from another perspective. With all of the commutations and pardons by the Biden administration, there's talk of who President-elect Trump might pardon when he takes office for his second term next month. Since his re-election victory in November, there has been renewed hope from inmates and their supporters that the president-elect may pardon them. To find out more, Scripps News Washington correspondent Liz Landers spent a couple of nights with supporters of January 6 defendants right outside of the D.C. jail.
Every single night for the last 2 years, there is a vigil that's held outside of the D.C. jail here. And the vigil is in support of people who participated in the January 6 riots who are now being held here. It's known as Freedom Corner, with a view of the so-called Patriot Wing, where a number of January 6 participants are held.
And we continue to pray for our patriots and pray for President Trump that he will abide by his word to pardon our patriots and set them free. We ask and pray this in Jesus' name. In Jesus' name, amen.
Among the vigil attendees, Brandon Fellows, a January 6th participant convicted of trespassing and disorderly conduct. Fellows spent nearly 36 months behind bars. He was released in May 2024. What is the Patriot Wing of the D.C. jail?
They're giving you food, they're giving you blankets, they're giving you spare clothes, they're telling you about their story, they're asking you about your story. Hey, why are you in here? What side of the Capitol were you on? Stuff like that. During the nightly vigil, inmates call the phones of organizers. That's how we got to speak with Jonathan Pollock and Joseph Hutchinson, who are awaiting trial. Pollock and Hutchinson are both accused of assaulting and punching police officers on January 6th. What are you guys thinking in terms of pardons? Do you think that you will receive one from President-elect Trump when he takes office?
He cares about us. He knows what we did that day. He stood for what was right. Oh, I mean, it'll be such a happy day if we did get pardoned, but he's got to make that decision. So.
Do you think that he'll do it on a case-by-case basis? His campaign has mentioned that, or do you think that he should do a blanket pardon for everybody that has been convicted?
All right. There's no doubt that I believe J6ers are going to be pardoned, no matter what their charges are. They're getting let out of here. He may go case by case, and because each one's different.
The number of pardons would be dramatic. More than 1,500 people have been federally charged in what has become the largest FBI investigation in history. Those charges range from destruction of government property to assault and seditious conspiracy. 169 have been charged with using a deadly or dangerous weapon or causing serious bodily injury to an officer. Trump reiterating in a national interview that he is considering pardoning rioters on day one of his administration.
We're looking at it right now, most likely, yeah.
Well,
those people have suffered long and hard, and there may be some exceptions to it. I have to look.
The Supreme Court has held that accepting a pardon implies an acceptance of guilt. Brandon Fellows says that gives him pause when considering whether to accept one. In order to get a pardon, you have to submit a pardon petition to the Department of Justice. Is that something you think you'll do?
I'm still thinking about it, but I mean, misdemeanors, I don't know. And also, I don't want to admit guilt because I didn't know I was breaking the law. They told me I wasn't. So that probably, as cool as having a presidential pardon would be, I've been increasingly in the past week, thinking, yeah, I'm not gonna put in for that.
January 6th, so much a part of Fellows' life that he has it on the license plate of his motorcycle. No one knows how many other defendants may, like Fellows is considering, not pursue a pardon. Presidential pardon powers are fairly broad, but this use of pardon power would be unique, says election expert and former Department of Justice attorney David Becker. Has a president ever pardoned this many people at one time for one incident?
I can honestly say I'm not aware of any similar situation in history. There certainly have been circumstances where a classification of crimes have been pardoned. Things like minor incidents of drug possession, for instance, or perhaps civil rights violations or something like that. But this would be I think it'd be relatively unique in this circumstance. You've got 1,000 people who took part in a crime that was videoed, that we all watched in real time unfold.
Do you think that pardoning the January 6 rioters will further support the claim that the 2020 election was stolen?
Well, I think the false claim that the 2020 election was stolen was dealt a very harsh blow by the success of the 2024 election. This has always been a lie, and I fear that the January 6th potential pardons won't necessarily have an effect on people's belief in the big lie from 2020 or not, but it will deal a pretty dangerous blow to the concept of accountability around those lies.
We need singers and dancers. We need singers and dancers, please, down front.
But on this evening, the support for Trump and those in the Patriot wing is unwavering. Liz Landers, Scripps News, Washington.
Coming up, some big accusations made by one group against the Utah Senate president about his campaign finance practices, how he's responding. Plus, Salt Lake County's district attorney is investigating voters, but not for the reason you may think. We'll explain why. And are you looking for a refund on some of your rent? How you can get some money back next year. An election complaint has been filed against the president of the Utah State Senate. The left-leaning policy group Alliance for a Better Utah has filed a complaint with the Lieutenant Governor's office. They say that Senate President J. Stewart Adams, a Republican, has hidden campaign and political action committee expenditures for the past 14 years using credit card and banking transactions, giving no clear indication where the money was spent. The Lieutenant Governor's office says it will investigate. Now, the Senate President tells Fox 13 News he has complied with election laws and guidance from the state, and he will update his disclosures thanks to new guidelines going into effect for candidates next month. He says the claim he failed to follow campaign disclosures is not just inaccurate, but a blatant falsehood. He accuses Alliance for a Better Utah of desperately fundraising in an effort to build on misinformation. Well, the Salt Lake County District Attorney's Office confirms it is investigating 2 ballots from the 2023 election cast by people who are dead. Now, this was caught by the Salt Lake County Clerk earlier this year. The DA's office says the investigation into voter fraud is ongoing. A recent audit for the legislature reported that and found some deceased people remained on voter rolls.
You can do the math. You can divide 2 by 160,000 and see what percentage that is. That is less than 1%. It's about it's 0.000125% is what it is. So it's not rampant, but I think what is more important is to send a very consistent message. Our elections are safe.
And those votes were caught by the clerk and not counted. Despite that very small number, the House Speaker has publicly questioned if it is time to scrutinize vote by mail. The Salt Lake County DA's office says no dead people voted in the 2024 election cycle. Well, the clock is ticking to sign up for the Utah State Tax Commission's Renter Refund Program, also known as the Circuit Breaker Program. Senior renters throughout the state, as well as unmarried widows and widowers of any age who rented a home, apartment, or paid lot rental on a manufactured home or trailer in 2023, can benefit from this program. Last year, 2,800 households took part. Those who qualify this year could receive up to $1,200 from it.
That would be for people who have an annual income of less than, say, $13,000 and change. They would get about 9.5% of the rent that they paid. And that's another thing that the money is based off of. It depends on how much rent you paid and what bracket you fall under with regard to your income.
The deadline to sign up for the program is December 31st. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes to apply online at tap.utah.gov. You can also submit an application to the Utah State Tax Commission by mail, fax, or in person. Coming up, it could be a breakthrough in saving water in part of Utah, but you'll see why what's great in one area could be a big problem in another.
And I have a special story about a 7-year-old using her talent to bless the lives of others during this holiday season.
And later in sports, 2 former Cougars shining on Thursday Night Football. But who would get the win, Puka or Fred? All as the Utah Hockey Club look to get win number 1 against their neighbor to the east. They played well in Denver tonight. Back in a bit.
Well, the biggest county in southern Utah is looking at making a major water policy shift to stretch the resource a little further. The Washington County Water Conservancy District, which manages the water supply for a large part of southern Utah, is getting ready to lean into water reuse, where wastewater would be purified to be reused on outside efforts. But what works in southern Utah would not work along the Wasatch Front because of the Great Salt Lake.
In the Great Salt Lake Basin, we have a unique problem to where a lot of the flow in, say, the Jordan River is actually water that's already come through a treatment facility and then comes back into the Jordan River and then flows into the Great Salt Lake. If we were to recycle or reuse that water, then we actually lose that water coming into the Great Salt Lake. And that's something we're actually concerned about.
Lawmakers will consider water policy shifts in the upcoming legislative session, and Washington County could roll out some of its new water standards in the coming years.
Yeah, I don't have to mow anything, not really missing the lawn.
In the St. George community of Desert Color, water conservation is not only in the plan, it is a selling point. The 3,400-acre property will ultimately have 11,000 residential units, and they're recycling all of their water. The pioneer in what the Washington County Water Conservancy District wants to ultimately do county-wide. Daniel Lemich, the general manager of Desert Color, said the large investment will pay dividends.
It's higher upfront cost for us, but less long-term cost for the owners, right, and the residents that are going to be here for generations.
Conservancy officials say Desert Color is the first master plan community in southern Utah to incorporate water reuse on a large scale. All right, Breck, let's not talk about the weather right now because you have a really nice story that you're covering.
Oh, I loved this interview. Well, we all know the part from the classic Christmas poem, "The stockings were hung by the chimney with care." Well, I caught up with an adorable 7-year-old girl from Kearns who's making stockings to care for those in need. Meet Chloe Montoya, who learned how to sew from her grandmother at the age of 4.
And is this your sewing machine?
Yeah.
What are you doing on your sewing machine during this time before Christmas? What are you trying to make?
I make homemade stockings.
Navajo.
Okay.
We're a Sheehy clan.
Since midsummer, Chloe has been making over 100 Christmas stockings for a purpose.
And why are you doing this?
To give other people some Christmas cheer around the holiday season.
Chloe wants to bring this cheer with stockings stuffed with hygiene products, games, and toys
And the candy cane.
to other Native youth who are part of the Utah foster care.
I put them in bags, and then in the bags I put a plushie, a book, a little book, and a puzzle.
Some of these items were donated, but other items were purchased by Chloe from the money she earned at selling her sewing goods at various markets. Her hands and heart are all over the gift.
How does it make you feel when you know you're making something special for someone that maybe doesn't have good things for Christmas?
Feel good.
Of course, big kudos of caring to Chloe, who's showing all of us that at any age we can share our talents to bless the lives of others during the season of giving. So,
Yeah.
amazing girl there.
What a great girl. And you mentioned that she's Native. You mentioned other Native children who she wants to support as well.
Yeah, her and her mother are heavily involved with that and these efforts. And so she did her part, and a big part, to get these items together and make those stockings. And next week they're going to deliver them out and spread them all across the state.
Oh, that is so great. Way to go, Chloe.
I know.
Well, the weather is looking how right now?
Well, a little frightful for some areas, not so much here across the state, but I want to show you a traffic camera.
Look at that.
This is not in Utah. This is in Nevada along
okay.
I-80 near Elko. This is what's
Hey.
heading our way. So
Yeah.
we are going to have moments of for some of us, some heavier snow showers, particularly in the mountains, maybe near some of the benches. This is not a huge storm, but it's definitely, as you can see, having an impact in some areas. And this is, again, be turning towards the state of Utah just in time for the morning commute. All right, let's talk about this first storm because we actually have 3 storms over the next 7 days. This first wave, again, coming tonight, where mainly after midnight through the morning commute, we're going to see the snow falling and accumulating, but not a lot. As we look here going from until Saturday morning, we can see a lot of light blue. So as we look at the kind of legend here, that would be about an inch, so maybe a trace to an inch for many valley locations as you go up in elevation with the benches. And then moving through the canyons, we could maybe get 1 to 3 inches, maybe some locations upwards of 4 inches. It's the second storm coming in Saturday, where initially it's rain in the valleys and then a mixture of rain and snow for the valleys, but a lot more snow, as you can see in the higher terrain where we're getting to the dark blues. Now we're talking 5 to 10 inches, maybe in even some locations upwards of a foot of snow. That would make it a decent snowstorm. Again, we're waiting for that big snowstorm that would bring a few feet. This is not the case, but the combination of these 2 storms helping things out, putting more snow up in the ski resorts, and of course building our snowpack. But this first wave coming in with some light snow, which will be about 2-3 a.m. and continue on through the morning commute. So I do have some concerns, again, if you're near the benches, looking up, going through some of the canyons where even if it's just an inch, it could stick to the roads, provide for slushy conditions, and just a time of a heavy travel time period as we go through the morning commute into the early afternoon hours. Now, we saw a little bit more of a concern with the air quality today. Shouldn't be so much tomorrow, and at least through Saturday, looks like we'll keep it good, especially when we have that next storm coming through, where the timing of that second storm coming through where it's the afternoon into the evening and initially starting off as rain. As I mentioned, we don't have any watches and warnings in place with the storm because it is, I guess, leaning on the side of being fairly weak there. But you're seeing that light snow here at Box Elder into Tooele County. Very spotty here throughout the state. Most of it not even hitting the ground as of yet. We primed the pump, though. It will be hitting the ground as we look towards tomorrow. With this storm in front tracking in, it's coming from the west, so we're not going to see cold air. Actually, we're not going to get much of a shake-up in temperatures here as we look over the next several days. But that's the first storm, and then this is going to be our Sunday storm. This one will bring definitely a lot more snow for the mountains, and again, a mixture of rain and snow for the valleys. Now, for tomorrow, highs still in the 40s, still above average, even through central Utah. The precipitation is along the Wasatch Front, maybe as far south as Fillmore, towards portions of northeastern Utah. The focus, though, and most of the precipitation falling here across northern Utah, Wasatch Front, Wasatch Back, and the Wasatch Mountains. Now, for St. George, you're avoiding the showers, you're hanging on to the sunshine, and you're hanging on to the 50s, even upper 50s as we go into Tuesday and Wednesday. So a very mild weather pattern for you here for the next several days. Northern Utah, well, it's different here. We've got that snow tonight through tomorrow morning. We're good for the afternoon through the morning hours of Saturday. Heading into the afternoon, it's rain showers, then a mixture of rain and snow on Sunday, break Monday. Another weak storm there on Tuesday, also bringing a chance of some rain and snow. And then out of there, then we see an extended break from the storms leading up to Christmas. We'll have more details about your Christmas forecast moving into the weekend. But for this weekend, it's going to be, again, with those showers. Temperatures should remain, though, well above average.
Beginning tonight, 3 of the next 4 for the hockey club on the road. But Thursday's game wasn't far, just over the mountain at the Avalanche. Utah and Colorado had only played once, a 5-1 hockey club loss back in October. But the pair set to play twice over the next 15 days. Start with this one against a new Central Division rival. The Avalanche won it all back in 2022. Utah on the board midway through the first. They gave it to Dylan Gunther, but it looks like it deflects off a Colorado skate right there. They'll take it, as they will this. Vladislav Kolychonik whips one in the second. The hockey club adding a third score nearly 2 minutes later. Gunther again scoring his 11th and 12th goals of the season. Karel Vejmelka could not quite notch the shutout, but got close as Utah prevails in Denver 4-1. Another good one here. 2 of the top 3 clubs out west from Winnipeg, where most of the scoring took place late. Josh Morrissey for the Jets to go up 2-1 on Vegas, but the Golden Knights force overtime with less than 2 minutes left, courtesy of power play perfection Victor Olofsson. Too quick through the back door there. Then with $1:14 left in the OT period, Ivan Barbashev delivers Vegas their 4th straight win. A couple of former Cougar greats went head-to-head on Thursday Night Football. Fred Warner for the Niners and Puka Nacua for the Rams. The second-year receiver coming out perhaps the best game of his career last Sunday in a win over the Bills. San Francisco hosting as both these teams scrap and claw to earn a playoff spot next month. Nothing but a slew of punts in the first half. A little more offense out of the locker room where Nacua starts to get involved. Takes a lick but holds on. 13 more on the same drive to set up a field goal in the third to tie it at 6. The big one not coming till the 4th. Matt Stafford pulls back and sees the former Orem Tiger racing toward the red zone. Call that one 51 yards. 7 catches for 97 overall for Nacua. A third Josh Carty kick giving LA their first lead. Brock Purdy in good shape to win this thing, but his end zone ball intended for Jawan Jennings sails a mile long, picked by Darius Williams. Give Warner a career-high 15 tackles in the loss. The Broncos today signed a former first-round pick out of Utah to a 4-year, $68 million extension through 2028. Garrett Bowles, who is Bo Nix's blindside protector on Denver's offensive line, is now the longest tenured player on the Broncos roster since getting taken 20th overall in 2017. He has started 23 straight games at tackle dating back to last season. The Jazz not back in play till tomorrow, but the Stars entertained San Diego tonight, where all 3 Jazz first-round picks got the start. Cody Williams on the steal feeds Keyshawn Justice on the other end. Then Isaiah Collier, 3 of his 23 coming on this play here, but Salt Lake City would fall to the Clippers for the second time in 3 nights, this time by a deuce in overtime. And high school basketball tournaments going on across the state, including at Davis. The Darts hosting Brighton, who led early going. Josh Maywinnie near the block, a game-high 20 for him. Here go the homeboys, though. Nice work inside the paint by Bodie Sparrow as the sophomore fades back. A little further back, Coleman Atwater dials up a 3 of his team-high 18, followed by Sparrow. A little topspin on the dish for a streaking Bennett Wright. Davis won all 4 quarters to take it by 20. We'll be right back.
Thank you for watching. QuickCast is next.